Wala pa sila, kasi pa ko. Wala. Alright, so good morning everyone. So welcome to the third part of our lesson under chapter 2. And this morning we're going to discuss or analyze the speech made by our former president, late Corazon Aquino. So in here we'll be learning a lot of things about what happened during those days, especially the time of Corazon Aquino. And also expect some of the activity, or we're gonna do some activities in connection with the speech of late Corazon Aquino. I guess we're all here, and there are 59 students online. Kindly inform others to get online na lang, ha? 10 minutes is over. Okay, we will start. So once again, good morning everybody, and today's session we're going to discuss. Yes, in today's discussion we are going to discuss the speech of President Corazon Aquino before the U.S. Congress. This lesson is still under chapter 2. This is still the continuation of chapter 2. So I hope everybody is okay today, and everybody is excited to learn new things, and these things will help us unfold the secrets about our existence, about Philippine history. But before anything else, before we start, let us know first, or let us recall, maybe some of you here, you have already forgotten who is Corazon Aquino, what is her contribution to the Philippines. And so at this moment, we're going to have a just a few overview about the late President Corazon C. Aquino. So of course, she was born on January 25, 1933 in Tarlac, and she was the 11th president, or she is the 11th president of the Philippines. First female president in Philippines and in Asia. So note these things. This will serve as a trivia. Alay nyo, labahan ko sa exam natin. Please. You have something to write. And she is the wife of Senator Benigno Aquino Jr. that time, a mother of President Benigno Aquino. Her presidency spanned for 6 years. Ibig sabihin na upo si former President Cory Aquino for almost 6 years, from February 25, 1986 to June 30, 1992. And she died on August 1, 2009 because of colorectal cancer. That's actually the cause of her death. Some more, and Corazon Aquino was the 11th, yes, and female president of the Philippines. She restored, no? As we all know that Corazon Aquino is known in the democracy after the long dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos. So we all know that right after Marcos, no, yung pumalit sa kanya is si Corazon Aquino. And as we all know that in the time of Marcos, we call martial law. So martial law, this is actually a kind of law wherein yung batas is nasa kamay ng mga military. That means that people or Filipino peoples those days, they did not have a right. They don't have the right to express themselves because it's what we call dictatorship under the presidency of President Marcos. So, as Corazon Aquino turned over and elected as the new president, now we have this democracy. Democracy means freedom. This refers to the freedom of the Filipino, and it was restored during her time. So here, her complete name is Maria Corazon Sumulong Cuangco Aquino. Yes, she was born January 5, 1933 at Tarlac, Philippines. So education, Mount St. Vincent College. Occupation, President. Okay. Now, Corazon or Cory Cuangco Aquino, she functioned as the symbol of the restoration of democracy. As what I've said earlier, kilala si Corazon Aquino sa pag-restore or pagbalik sa kalayaan ng mga Pilipino because in the time of Marcos, andun na yung tinatawag nating martial law wherein walang kalayaan yung mga tao kasi ang batas is hawak ng mga military. So people those days, or Filipino people those days, they don't have the right to express themselves and to do whatever they want. And they should abide, no? If happened that you were in that situation or you were in that era, so you're going to depend on the order of the military. Kung ano yung order, so yung naging protocol is president down to military, then military to people. So ibig sabihin, lahat ng tao is under sa umbrella ng mga military. That's why it's what we call dictatorship or martial law. It's actually martial law. Now, a housewife who had always been in the shadow of her husband and relatives and had no experience in politics. So, medyo baguhan si Corazon Aquino in terms of politics kasi nga, she is always after the shadow of her husband. Now, came from a rich haciendero family in Tarlac and owned vast estate sugar plantation. So, alam naman natin na yung pagpaslang kay Ninoy Aquino, so dito na parang lumabas si Corazon Aquino and just to replace the presidency or the governance of Marcos. Now let's begin. So this time, since we have already unfolded some information about Corazon Aquino, or we just reviewed who is Corazon Aquino and what was her contribution and her education, her biography actually. So now let's begin. When former President Corazon Aquino spoke before a joint session of the United States Congress in September of 1986, the dust was only beginning to settle. It was her first visit to America since the dictator Ferdinand Marcos had been deposed in February of the same year, and the Philippines was reckoning with everything his administration has inflicted. So this is the start of everything. The first encounter of President Aquino, and she actually joined a session in the United States in 1986. So that was the time na nangyari yung kanyang her delivery of her speech. That included 26 billion US dollar in total foreign debt and the communist insurgency that grew throughout the Marcos era from 500 armed guerrillas to 16,000. We were just at the start of a long road to recovery. So as we all know that during the time of Marcos, ang daming utang. Isa itong 26 billion US dollar. Utang ng Pilipinas sa US. So ito yung naging challenge sa part naman ni President Cory Aquino, not just in restoring the democracy, but she is also encountering problem as to the foreign debt, no? Yung foreign debt ng bansa or yung utang ng bansa, no? So Aquino lodged an appeal for help. Addressing the House, she delivered a historic speech that managed to sway in her favor the vote for an emergency $2 million aid appropriation. So ngayon, through her speech, kaya Corazon Aquino decided to deliver a speech. Kumbaga, ang speech na to is she wanted to ask help, or she wanted an help that the US will render or will let us lend $200 million as aid appropriation. So yun nangyari kasi nga malaki yung ibinagsak ng ating bansa in terms of economy during the time of Marcos. I mean, yung utang pa ng bansa natin. No? So in the moving speech penned by her speechwriter and our current ambassador to the United Nations, Teddy Locsin, so it was Teddy Locsin who wrote her speech. So Aquino defended her reconciliatory stand on the communist insurgency, a sensitive issue in the US, given that this was 1986, and asked for financial aid towards rebuilding Philippine economy. Ito na yung sinasabi kanina, no? She actually asked for help, specifically a financial help in rebuilding the Philippine economy. Yun nga, sa panahon ni Marcos, parang bumagsak ang ekonomiya ng bansa. Then, as Aquino has been elected or had been elected as the president, so ito yung naging first move niya aside from, doing some sensitive issue like yung mga communist insurgency, kasi ang daming komunista those days, no? So, paano yung Marcos? Because of the president, the kind of governance that Marcos has, kaya nagkaroon ng mga communists. So isa yun sa result ni President Cory Aquino, and also to have some financial aid from the US as to rebuilding the Philippine economy. Now, this is one of the examples of the content of her speech. So let's read together. We fought for honor, and if only for honor, we shall pay, she said, agreeing to pay the debt that was stolen by Marcos. And yet, should we have to wring the payments from the sweat of our men's faces and sink all the wealth piled up by the bondsman, 250 years of unrequited toil? So no, if you observe on her speech, we can come up with the idea that it talks about the utang, the debt of our country, and that was stolen by Marcos according to her. And yet should we have to kumbaga, in here, she said, again to the pay the debt was stolen by Marcos, and yet should we have to wring the payments from the sweat? Ibig sabihin, ang pera na to is pinaghirapan from the sweat, mura sa pawis maybe ng mga Pilipino. And it turned out with this kind of scenario that it was stolen by Marcos. So parang ganun, no? Grabe yung hinaing ng ating late President Cory Aquino against Marcos. Kasi nga, because Marcos stolen money at naging utang ng ating bansa sa US. Now, the speech was impassioned, deeply personal, and effective. So yun nga, no, the content of her speech is really personal and impassioned. Ikaw naman, no? Because during that day, Cory Aquino really expressed her sentiments. Parang yung hinaing niya talaga yung against Marcos. Kasi nga it's a challenge to her that as she turned as the president of the Philippines, ganun kalaki yung utang ng ating bansa sa US. And it's quite challenging on her part. Na? So interrupted 11 times by applause and bookended with standing ovation. So yun yung nangyari. No? As she finished her speech, so She earned applause from the audience. House Speaker Tip O'Neill called it the finest speech I ever heard in my 34 years in Congress. So according to the House Speaker Tip O'Neill, this was this was the finest speech I ever heard. Kasi nga, grabe yung emotion that being expressed by Cory Aquino, no? And the reality that she has spoken in her speech, and that's actually evident. Totoo talaga siya. Now, Senate Majority Leader Robert Dole told her, Cory, you hit a home run. And House Minority Whip Trent Lott said, let's just say that the emotion of the moment saved the day. Because this speech of Cory Aquino is filled or was filled with emotion. Grabe yung emotion ni Cory Aquino. No? And it actually saved the day. Kumbaga, naging controversy siya, naging laman siya ng araw, and she actually caught the attention of everybody who's there. No? It would go down in the annals of our history as one of the former president's finest speeches. So that's why Corazon Aquino's speech is part of learning Philippine history because this is considered as the finest speeches. No, the finest speeches. So yun yung nangyari, no? Kasi nga, but the content of our slide is just a summary. I-summarize ko na lang because it's too long. If we're going to base it on the speech, actually, it's too long, no? So yun nga lang, no? If we're going to analyze the speech of Corazon Aquino, so we can infer that this is really the finest speech she had ever done in her life. And this actually marked Philippine history. Kumbaga, nag-iwan siya ng marka. Hindi lang sa Pilipinas, pero maging sa ibang bansa. No? It's honest, it's full of emotion, di ba? Very persuasive. So in her speech before the United States Congress, which she delivered on September 1986, 7 months after assuming the presidency, President Aquino observed that ours must have been the cheapest revolution ever. Despite the people power revolution, however, the democratic political system of the Philippines is still fragile and flawed. Yes, and this is really true. Medyo, in terms of politics, mahina ang ating bansa. So when you say fragile and flawed, there is an imperfection. Knowing that up to this day, nangyayari pa rin ang karumihan in terms of politics. Do you agree with me? When it comes to politics, kilala ang ating bansa sa politics kasi nga medyo marumi ang ating bansa in terms of political system. Andyan yung dynasty, andyan yung pagpaslang. Now, if you observe or if you still remember the Maguindanao massacre, are you aware of that? Wherein there were media men who were killed, who were murdered. There were innocent people. There were politicians. That scenario or that incident or the Maguindanao massacre incident, that is an example or a proof na our political system in our country is fragile and flawed. It's full of flaws. No? So ganun. And that's actually one of the contents of President Cory Aquino's speech, which is done in 1986. Sinabi niya pa dito, ours must have been the cheapest revolution ever. And she's referring to the revolution or the people power revolution. Alam naman natin, ang nangyari ang people power revolution, ito yung nangyari to a point Cory Aquino as the president after Marcos. Kasi nga, one of the problem with the governance of Marcos is yung tinatawag nating dictatorship. Yung walang kalayaan ng Pilipino, syempre, ikaw naman walang kalayaan. So of course, it's really hard to live in, in a controlled community wherein yung sunod lang is yung higher rank. So kaya nag-come up or Filipino people during those days, united, and they come up with people power revolution against Marcos to appoint Cory Aquino as the new president. So talking about since we discussed here about President Cory Aquino, so along with her is the People Power Revolution in 1986. So when we talk about President Cory Aquino, andyan yung papasok sa mind natin. When we talk about Cory Aquino, we have there democracy, and we have here People Power Revolution. She is known with People Power Revolution in 1986. Now, this People Power Revolution was recognized around the world for its peaceful character. So yun yung ginagandahan ng revolution. Kaya tinawag itong cheapest revolution kasi walang nangyaring masyadong duguan, walang mga pagpaslang because People Power Revolution is known as the peaceful revolution that ever happened in history. And excuse me. Protests from different sectors frequented different areas in the country. Nagkaroon ng mga protests, yun nga, it's against Marcos. It's against Marcos. And February 1986, Corazon Aquino convinced to run against Marcos. So yun na yung nangyari. Along People Power Revolution, so Corazon Aquino was convinced to run against Marcos with the help of the Filipino people through People Power Revolution. Now, the thousands of people who gathered overthrow Ferdinand Marcos from presidency after 20 years. So as we all know that Ferdinand Marcos ruled the Philippines for 21 years. Sabihin, nakaupo siya ng 21 years and people, kumbaga, hindi agree yung mga tao sa kanyang pamamalakad, and that's why they come up with People Power Revolution. Now, the People Power Revolution of February 1986. So let's just dig. Medyo paliman na natin ang discussion. The people fulfilled one of Rizal's prophecies in his book, El Filibusterismo. So, in People Power Revolution, kumbaga, kasi sa book ni Rizal na El Filibusterismo, if you're aware of this, there is this speech or there is this lines there na nakasulat na kung saan pinaniwalaan ng mga Pilipino nagkatotoo yung kanyang propesya. No? He has this prophecy which was written on his book at in the time of, alam naman natin na mas nauna yung time ni Jose Rizal during the Spaniards and yung kanyang mga prophecy is nagkatotoo. So this is his prophecy. When a people reaches that height, God will provide a weapon. The idols will be shattered. The tyranny will crumble like a house of cards, and liberty will shine out like the first dawn. Now, these lines coming from Rizal are actually very significant, very memorable, very figurative. No? If you observe, very figurative. The words here is indirect, medyo indirect. So when the people reaches that height, so ibig sabihin, punong-puno ng Pilipino, that height, naabot na yung height, ibig sabihin, naubos na yung pasensya mo. God will provide a weapon. So weapon through People Power or People Power Revolution, wherein Filipino people were united. So yun naging power ng mga Pilipino. They don't have actually the literal power like Spider-Man, like Darna, who has power, but their power is the unity, the power in unity. The idols will be shattered. Who is this idol referring to? He's referring to, or in what happened with revolution. So yung idol dito is si Ferdinand Marcos. The tyranny will crumble like a house of cards, And liberty is democracy. Liberty means democracy or freedom. Will shine out like the first dawn. So yun nga no, this prophecy made by Rizal is nagkatotoo through People Power Revolution, and as they appointed or elected Corazon Aquino as the new president, ito nagkaroon na ng liberty ang bansa. So that's actually the prophecy of Rizal na naging totoo. Now, February 22, 1986 at 6 p.m. of Saturday, the revolution began as a bloodless military revolt of reform movement in the armed forces of the Philippines, led by Minister Enrile and General Ramos. So it's bloodless. Therefore, we call it peaceful revolution because it's bloodless. Walang mga dugong nasayang, walang mga papagslang ang nangyari, kasi nga, it's a peaceful one. People power. Ibig sabihin, nagwelga lang yung mga tao. So immediately, priests and nuns led by Cardinal Sin and ordinary citizens inspired by Corazon Aquino, etc., with the merging of these three powers, military, church, and people power. So ito yung mga nag-merge, no? The military, church, and people power. Kaya naging peaceful ang nangyaring revolution. Now, do you have any question? Let's just do a recap before we proceed to the activity. So it's just do a recap, or you can take screenshot, okay? You can take screenshot. Pwede kayo mag-take ng picture. So that's it. We have just discussed a few things about Corazon Aquino, her biography, her contribution to the country. And we all know that she is the symbol of restoration of democracy. She is a plain housewife of former or late Ninoy Aquino. That's why she has no idea about politics. But as she goes along, or as she goes along her journey as the president, she learns a lot. Now, she came from a rich haciendero family in Tarlac and own vast state. So from the Cuangco, kasi alam naman natin mga Cuangco, they are really rich. Mga sikat ang mga mayamang tower, matataas na antas sa ating bansa. Excuse me. Yeah, so, okay. So that's it. She delivered her speech on September 1986 in the United States Congress. And as we all know that the intent of her speech is to kick out, no? Or to, to speak for herself about her sentiments tungkol doon sa pamalakad ni Marcos na nagkaroon ng malaking utang. Okay, don't worry, ang mga discussion natin, it will be sent before ang exam isa-send. Before now, hindi ko muna i-send para isahan na lang. Don't worry, yung slide ko lahat from the very beginning up to the last part before exam, isi-send ko sa ating GC. Wag mo na ngayon, no? So let's go with online muna. Isi-send ko lang sa GC natin. So that included 26 billion in total. Ito yung naging utang nating bansa. 26 billion. So this is it. This is her line. And her speech was called as the finest speech that earned applause, etc. or standing ovation na hinangaan ng lahat ng tao. That's why naging parte ito ng ating history. So we also discuss about people power revolution. Again, people power revolution is called as the peaceful revolution or the cheapest revolution ever because it is bloodless. Naging bloodless siya. Walang dugong umana. And it was recognized as, yes, peaceful character. The world peaceful character. So as we all know that, bakit nagkaroon ng people power revolution? Again, to what? Para, kick out si Marcos sa pwesto at ipalit si Corazon Aquino, no, as the new president. Yan. And what was written by Rizal in his book El Filibusterismo, it became true. His prophecy became true na nagkaroon talaga ng kalayaan ng mga Pilipino from some hands of dictatorship. Now, for our assessment, so I want you to watch the President Corazon Aquino before the U.S. Congress speech on YouTube. So this speech of her, this was the complete speech she has. So pwede ito panoorin sa weekend, then you're going to submit it next meeting sa November 27. Okay. Kuhain ko na ng submission date. Makaya nyo ba November 27? Anyway, it's just a reflection paper lang naman. Mag-reflect lang kayo about sa speech niya. So any question with the activity? Any question with activity? Again, watch the President Corazon Aquino before the U.S. Congress on YouTube. So andyan yung link. Send ko lang yung link mamaya sa inyo. I'm gonna send you the link para hindi kayo mahirapan. Oh, yes. I will send you the link later. I'm going to send it later, the link, this link, no? Wait lang. Kopyahin ko na muna. And I'm going to send it. Share nyo na lang. So I already sent the link of wherein you can find it on YouTube and make a reflection about it. So we have here question ni Persus, bakit, sir, bakit na-erase na yung kwan? Kasi alam mo noon, kasi it's somewhat a kind of politics, di ba? Pag sino yung malapit, during those days, wala pang standard talaga na pag-set or rules about politics, no? Kung sino ang malapit and who is capable of doing that, so she will be appointed or he or she will be appointed as the president. And knowing that Cory Aquino is also she is influential. She is influential kasi nga, galing sa mayang pamilya. No? But what's the reason behind? We really don't know. Any clarification about the activity we had? We still have 11 minutes. Okay, kumusta ang inyong project? Let's talk about your project. Your kartilya ng Katipunan. How is it? Kumusta ang kartilya ng Katipunan nyo? Can you submit it today, students? Masubmit nyo ba today? Yes, Persus, it's because of the people power. Ito na naging people power, Persus. This actually, the weapon used by Corazon Aquino is the people power. No? People united. Although, yung nag-elect sila ulit and Marcos had won, but still, she was kicked out because of people power. That's actually written on the prophecy of Rizal. Sir, di pa na-edit. Hit na lang po lang. Okay. You know what Maria Carla read those days is there is this what we call influence, no? During those days, as what I've said earlier, wala pang standard guidelines talaga who will be elected. Kasi nung unang panahon, kung sino yung malapit, sino yung powerful, yun yung capable na mag-upo as president. Even vice president ka pa. It's a surprise. So as you're going to watch the speech of Corazon Aquino, please reflect. I want you to reflect how does it feel, or maybe try to put your situation in a foot of, or try to wear the shoe of Corazon Aquino, or maybe how do you feel upon hearing or watching the speech of Corazon Aquino towards democracy of our country, towards the dictatorship of Marcos. So gusto ko yun maging content ng iyong reflection. And you as a student of today's generation, how does it help you? Magmana yung laman ng inyong mga description. How does this realization or how does this speech of hers help you realize something important matter about how is it ang nangyari sa bansa natin, ano ba in terms of politics? If you were the president, what will you do? So parang ganon yung i-put sa reflection paper. You have to reflect on this. Okay, any problem pa kasi masasuggest hindi natin ma-answer yung mga problem nyo kay dito kasi we still have 10 minutes kasi 1 hour tayo. Bawal natin i-corrupt yung ating time. Pero yun nga class, no, although na-elect si Corazon Aquino as the president, hindi matagal yung kanyang pag-upo. Medyo din yung pag-upo niya. Hindi matagal yung term na nagugol ni Corazon Aquino. Kasi ang dami ding issue as you go along. I guess, may mga issue din sa kanya about pork barrel. Ham versus, sir, do you believe that Marcos stole? Actually, ako kasi, I'm just neutral and I'm just following the books. Pero marami akong narinig about the good things made by Marcos kasi nga I have friends. Basically ako I'm not a history teacher. And actually history is not actually my favorite subject, but somebody told me that or somebody shared me about the contribution of Marcos. Yun nga, mura daw ang bilihin dati sa panahon ni Marcos, ano pa yung mga alam ko. Wala yatang tax, if I'm not mistaken, walang tax. Or kung may tax, siguro maliit ang tax na nangyari. But as to that issue, anyway, up to this day, pesos ang issue na yan. The issue is that, di ba, yun nga, actually, nung last time, nung sa KMJS, if you watch that, merong lumabas na tao, yung from Baguio City, that she actually asserted na ninakaw na ng mga Marcos yung ginto and many more, no? But as of Kwan, based on my experience or what I read or what is being told to me, neutral lang ako. I'm just neutral. Kasi the ideas are divided kasi there are people said against Marcos and there are also people said about or uttered some words in agreement with Marcos. Kasi parang ganun yung nangyari, di ba? And knowing that I was not there during that time. At yun nga, based on the speech of, yun lang yung sabi natin na nagkaroon ng malaking utang. The fact is that, based on the book, nagkaroon ng malaking utang ang ating bansa sa term ni Marcos. I don't know if he spent it or he stole it. Maybe he stole it to help the people or maybe he stole it for himself, for his personal interest. So we don't know. But what I know and what I am sure up to this day, that nagkaroon ng utang ang ating bansa worth 26 billion during the time of Marcos. I cannot say na he used it for himself, for personal consumption, kasi nga marami din akong narinig na yun nga, mura ang bilihin, walang tax ang ating bansa. There is still good about Marcos, kaya ako, I'm just neutral. But we'll just depend on the speech of Marcos or of Corazon Aquino. Anyway, ang ating lesson is it talks about the analysis only. It's about the analysis. We're not more on digging the detail, what's really happened. You can read further about that. Pero kapag if you're reading kasi on the internet, ang dami kasing mga, ang daming mga ideas, ang daming mga reliable and non-reliable sources. There are some people who said that it's good, it's really great. The presidency of Marcos is kind of great. Marami na nagsabi na, anyway, yung naging masama lang is yung pagiging dictatorship lang, no? Yung pagiging diktador lang ni Marcos, I guess. But as to the products, as to the economy, yes, yun nga, bumaba ang presyo ng bilhin. Pero based on the speech of Corazon Aquino, yun nga, bumagsak ang ekonomiya ng ating bansa. So if we're going to infer on that, maybe, it's more likely 60%. 60% pesos na oo. 60% na oo na ninakaw. Kasi nga, bumaba yung kwan. Kasi nga, if Marcos spent this money for the Philippines, I guess, hindi babagsak yung ekonomiya ng ating bansa, di ba? But anyway, Persus, yes, I am quietly agree on that. Do you believe, sir, that if the legacy of Marcos continues, Philippines not lesser than any other country in, yes, Southeast Asia? I'm quietly agree on that. I'm quietly agree on that, Persus, knowing the fact that, yun nga, during the time of Marcos, walang tax, then, mura yung bilihin. But then, as to the economy, yun, medyo contradicting lang naman siya because, kasi ang focus naman ng lesson na to is about the speech. If we're going to analyze deeply the speech of Corazon Aquino, we can find out na bumagsak ang ekonomiya ng bansa. So if we're going to analyze, so how can we compete globally? How can we compete with Southeast Asian countries? How can we at par of these Southeast Asian countries if dito pa lang bumagsak ang ekonomiya ng bansa? If we're going to base it on the speech of Corazon Aquino, because in this discussion, we're just relying on the speech of Corazon Aquino, regardless of some issues you've known, regardless of some ideas you know about the presidency of Marcos. Maybe if we're going to base it on the speech of Corazon Aquino, I guess hindi magiging competitive ang ating bansa towards Southeast Asia or among Southeast Asian countries. Kasi nga, although maraming positive things about him, yun nga, mura yung bilihin, walang tax, but there still have this, bad things about him, yun nga, yung pagnakaw ng kaba ng bansa. Okay, yung mga may prayer pa, you may leave now, but those who are still online, we can still discuss. Ang ganda ito, di ba? It seems that we are still discussing. We are in face-to-face discussion. Ito yung mga gusto ko, like Persus, no? We have to ask question. We have to what if, no? Because we are more analyst. At least everyone can realize, everyone can ask a question. What if kaya? Ano kaya ang mangyayari, no? That's good. That's good about you, Persus. Yung iba, wala ba kayong mga queries in mind? O si Persus na lang yung kwan. We have to ask questions because we can analyze things here and we can help each other. Because learning will happen not only through the effort of your teacher, but also with your effort. It's time to realize something. It's time to reflect something. It's time to react. We have to react. We still have 2 minutes. We still have 2 minutes. Again, your video can still be sent until tomorrow. Makaya niya tomorrow? Okay. So ano ang naging contribution ni Cory Aquino during her time? So basically, we all know that Corazon Aquino is known in terms of democracy. The major contribution she has is the restoration of democracy. Yun, nagkaroon ng kalayaan ang ating bansa. But as to the economy of the country, I'm not pretty sure kung nabayaran ba. I guess parang hindi pa nabayaran yung utang ng ating bansa in her time. Kasi nga, parang 6 years, only 6 years that Corazon Aquino ruled as the president. So, wala siya masyadong naging significant contribution aside from restoring the democracy. Democracy lang yung major contribution niya. Nagkaroon ng press, some more question in mind, curiosity. Yes, you may leave now. Yung magsimba, pwede na umalis. I guess no more question because 11:05 na pala. We should end it up. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing for asking some question, giving your inputs. I hope next meeting, please, you ask some question and, try to evaluate something. Try to analyze kasi we can learn from it, from analyzing. Kasi our discussion here, we are more on analysis. Kaya dapat we should analyze. We should think critically. We should think critically to analyze something. Okay. See you next meeting again. Don't ever forget to watch the speech of Corazon Aquino and try to write a reaction or reflection paper. Bye, everybody. See you next meeting.